This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, we have breaking news, and it is major breaking news in the Russia investigation. CNN has just learned that Robert Mueller has charged former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn with willfully and knowingly making false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements to the FBI. This has to do with his meetings that he held with the former Russian ambassador. Again, Michael Flynn charged with making false statements to the FBI. Let's go right away to Shimon Prokupecz for the details on this. Shimon.
That's right, John. So we believe he was taken into custody. He was charged this morning. The special counsel filing this one charge in an information with the U.S. District Court here in Washington. And it relates to his conversation with the former Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak. Remember, there was a lot of scrutiny concerning that conversation. The FBI subsequently interviewed him following that conversation. They interviewed him in January. And it is the statements that he made to them during that interview in January that they are now saying he lied to FBI agents about the nature of that conversation. Also, you recall it was the former Attorney General, Sally Yates, who raised issues about this conversation. She went to the White House, raised issues with the chief counsel there, Don McGahn, saying that she had some concerns about the nature of those conversations. Well, we now learn that the FBI has charged him, believes that he had lied to them, and the special counsel has charged him with lying to the FBI about that conversation. The information goes into some detail about those conversations, and we're reading through that right now. And basically it says that, let me just read some of this to you, John. That's probably the best way to do this. That on December 29th, in one of the conversations in 2016, Flynn, it says, did not ask the government of Russia's ambassador to the United States to refrain from escalating the situation in response to sanctions that the United States had imposed against Russia. Again, when the FBI confronted him about these conversations, he lied about the nature, allegedly, according to these documents, about the nature of the conversation. Again, also, remember, he told the vice president that he did not have those conversations, did not talk about sanctions. Ultimately, lying to the vice president got him fired. And now more serious charges here against the former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. He's now charged with at least one count of lying to the FBI.
All right, Shimon Prokupecz, stand by. Oh, actually, Shimon, I have one more important question here. Charge, do we know if he's pleading guilty to this yet?
Right, so there's been a lot of talk that he's been negotiating a plea deal. We have not been told if this means. Usually this, by filing information like this usually follows the standard of what we see in where a person pleads guilty. So the prosecutors will file an information. Following that, perhaps maybe this afternoon, we may see a plea from Michael Flynn. You know, we've been told that there have been conversations, ongoing conversations for a possible deal. We've also been told there has been a grand jury activity, a grand jury testimony that has been ongoing here in D.C. regarding the investigation. So this is not as severe, perhaps, as a grand jury indictment. And right. Usually we do see an information is filed when someone plans to plead guilty. So that could happen here today.
All right, Shimon, stand by. We'll let you get back to reporting for a second. Join me now on the phone is CNN's chief legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey, thanks so much for being with us. I have a few questions for you. Let's walk through these one at a time.
I'm sorry, John. Can I just interrupt?
Please.
Because I just received notice from the special counsel's office that Flynn will be appearing at 10:30 this morning to plead. And it doesn't say specifically that he's going to plead guilty, but it is an information, not an indictment, which almost certainly means a guilty plea, because information means the defendant has waived the possibility of indictment. So this appears to be almost certainly a guilty plea by Michael Flynn to lying to the FBI at 10:30 this morning at the federal court in Washington, D.C. So, okay. I mean, that's the headline, is that he will appear in court at 10:30, and it appears virtually certain that it will be a guilty plea.
That's why I was asking Shimon. We have every reason to believe he will plead guilty to this at 10:30. So, Jeffrey, the significance of that.
Well, it's of immense significance because Michael Flynn was an extremely high-ranking member of the Trump administration. He was National Security Advisor, albeit less than a month. He was also someone who was intimately involved in the Trump campaign and had many connections with Russians, including meeting with Vladimir Putin in December of 2015. So a guilty plea by Michael Flynn with the agreement to cooperate and testify is certainly the biggest development of the Mueller investigation since he was appointed in May.
And Jeffrey,
it is important to point out that it is not clear what kind of cooperation he can provide, whether he will provide evidence of other illegal activities. But the fact that the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States is pleading guilty to a felony is a very big deal in and of itself. And it certainly shows that the Mueller investigation is far from winding down, but in fact gearing up.
Again, just some perspective here. The president's former campaign chair, Paul Manafort, has been indicted, charged with crimes. The president's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, has now been charged with lying and will, we expect, plead guilty. Jeffrey, another legal point here. This seems to be a fairly narrow charge that he's going to plead guilty to. This is specifically just about conversations he had with the Russian ambassador during the transition. It does not include all kinds of questions about how Michael Flynn registered, whether he registered the right way as a lobbyist, questions he had with Turkey, his own business interactions. That's not part of this. Now, I guess we don't know for certain whether or not being charged for that is part of the deal, but one of the things we do know is that Michael Flynn was very concerned about protecting his son, who was, of course, tied up with all of that.
That's right, and something you will certainly hear from the White House and White House advisors is that this wrongdoing, presumably, assuming that Flynn pleads guilty to it, does not involve other people in the White House, does not suggest any sort of conspiratorial behavior by other people in the campaign, wrongdoing by the president or the president's family or other people in the campaign. It is a discrete crime committed by Michael Flynn, if it was in fact committed by him, of lying to the FBI. So, while it is highly significant, it does not in and of itself implicate other people, including the president, with criminal wrongdoing.